On Christmas Eve, with fourth quarter revenue down 12%, I did what any smart CEO would do. I cut my losses. Sentiment is a liability in business. It's a cancer that eats away at the bottom line, and Christmas is the most expensive strain of that cancer. My restaurant, Aureus, was built to be a machine for profit. But the machine was sputtering, so I pulled the plug. I stood before my staff, their faces a mix of fake holiday cheer and tired expectation. The Christmas lights strung around the dining room seemed to mock them. "Effective immediately," I announced, my voice echoing in the huge space. "All positions are terminated. The market has spoken, and your sentiment doesn't pay the bills. Your personal things will be mailed to you. Security will now escort you out." A wave of disbelief hit the room, followed by gasps and angry whispers. It didn't matter. Their feelings were their problem, not mine. I had a balance sheet to save. The room blew up. A chef, a guy I'd hired for his Michelin star potential, threw his hat on the floor. "On Christmas Eve? You're a monster!" he screamed. A server started sobbing, her shoulders shaking as she talked about the gifts under her tree she couldn't afford now. Their words were just static, meaningless noise against the cold, hard logic of the numbers. I went back to my glass-walled office above the dining room and watched the chaos like a silent movie. One by one, they filed out. Some shot hateful looks up at me. Others were too lost in their own misery to notice. I didn't see people. I saw liabilities I had just wiped off the books. Maria, the head hostess for 5 years, gone. David, the bartender who knew every regular's drink, redundant. Each person leaving was a small win for fiscal responsibility. Soon the angry shouts and crying faded, replaced by a deep, unnerving quiet. The grand dining room, alive with people just moments ago, was now a ghost town of empty tables and pointless decorations. The only sound was the pre-recorded loop of cheerful holiday music still playing. For a second, I felt a strange hollowness in my gut. I told myself it was just hunger. My empire was safe. That's all that mattered. The silence was the sound of success. I wasn't lonely. I was free. I stayed in my office for an hour, looking over market projections and writing a press release about the restaurant's temporary closure for restructuring. Outside, the world went dark as snowflakes began to blanket the city. I was about to grab my briefcase when I saw a flicker of movement down below. One person was still there. It was Amelia, one of the newer waitresses. A quiet girl who did her job well and never made a fuss. She was on her hands and knees wiping down the baseboards. I was instantly annoyed. What was she doing? Did she not get what terminated meant? I stormed out of my office, my footsteps loud on the marble floor. "What are you still doing here?" I snapped. She flinched and quickly stood up, a cleaning rag in her hand. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling, I couldn't leave it a mess. It didn't feel right." I almost laughed. "It doesn't feel right? You want to know what isn't right? Wasting your time cleaning a restaurant that doesn't employ you anymore? Your work ethic is admirable but completely pointless now. Go home." She looked down at her hands, then back up at me. She wasn't defiant, just sad. "Yes, sir. I will. I just have one last thing." I crossed my arms, impatient. "And what's that?" I figured she was about to beg for her job back, tell me some sob story about her family. It was a predictable move, and it never worked. She didn't say a word. Instead, she walked to the small, now empty staff locker area. From a bag, she pulled out a simple container wrapped in brown paper and tied with red yarn. She walked back toward me, her steps hesitant but sure. She stopped a few feet away and held the box out. "What is this?" I asked, suspicious. "It's for you, sir," she said softly. "I know you always stay late, and you never eat with anyone. I figured you'd be alone tonight. My family always makes too much food for Christmas Eve. It's not much, but I wanted you to have it." I just stared at the box, then at her. I couldn't speak. I was the man who had just fired her, who had ruined her Christmas without a second thought. And she was standing here offering me a gift? It didn't make sense. It was inefficient. It broke every rule of self-interest I lived by. Why? The word came out as a choked whisper. She gave me a small, sad smile. It's Christmas Eve. No one should be alone. No one should be hungry. She placed the box on a nearby table, since I was still too stunned to take it. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice completely genuine. Then she turned and walked out the door, vanishing into the snow. She left me alone in the vast, silent hall with that small, unassuming box. She didn't beg. She gave. She didn't say a word. Instead, she walked to the small, now empty staff locker area. From a bag, she pulled out a simple container wrapped in brown paper and tied with red yarn. She walked back toward me, her steps hesitant but sure. She stopped a few feet away and held the box out. "What is this?" I asked, suspicious. "It's for you, sir," she said softly. "I know you always stay late, and you never eat with anyone. I figured you'd be alone tonight. My family always makes too much food for Christmas Eve. It's not much, but I wanted you to have it." I just stared at the box, then at her. I couldn't speak. I was the man who had just fired her, who had ruined her Christmas without a second thought. And she was standing here offering me a gift? It didn't make sense. It was inefficient. It broke every rule of self-interest I lived by. Why? The word came out as a choked whisper. She gave me a small, sad smile. It's Christmas Eve. No one should be alone. No one should be hungry. She placed the box on a nearby table, since I was still too stunned to take it. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice completely genuine. Then she turned and walked out the door, vanishing into the snow. She left me alone in the vast, silent hall with that small, unassuming box. She didn't beg. She gave. I stood there for what felt like forever, just staring at the box. My first instinct was to throw it out. A pathetic gesture from a naive girl who didn't get how the world works, but I didn't. I walked over, feeling stiff, and picked it up. It was still warm. I carried it to the biggest table in the dining room, the one for parties of 12, and sat at its head. A king on a throne in an empty kingdom. I untied the yarn and lifted the lid. Steam rose, carrying a smell that hit me like a punch. It was beef stew, a humble, simple meal. But the smell, that rich, savory scent of slow-cooked meat, carrots, and potatoes, with thyme and something else I couldn't quite name. It was the exact smell that used to fill the tiny apartment I grew up in. My mother, her hands chapped and her face always tired, would simmer that same stew on our little stove. It was all we could afford most winters. As a boy, I'd sit at our small kitchen table doing homework, and that smell was like a warm blanket. It was the scent of safety, of love. The memory buried for decades under ambition and ruthless logic came rushing back. I saw my mother's face, clear as day. I felt her hand on my shoulder. I remembered her telling me, "One day, Adrian, you'll be so successful you'll eat in the fanciest restaurants. But promise me you'll never forget the warmth of a simple meal." I had forgotten. In my race to build an empire, I had only built a fortress of solitude. I had every luxury money could buy, but I hadn't felt real warmth in 30 years. This wasn't just food. It was a message from a past I tried to erase. A single tear rolled down my cheek. Then another. And suddenly I wasn't the powerful CEO anymore. I was just a lonely man in an empty room, weeping over a box of stew given to me by a girl whose life I had just destroyed. I was crying for my mother, for the boy I used to be, and for the man I had become. The first light of Christmas morning came through the tall windows. I was still at the table, the empty container in front of me. The storm of grief was gone, and in its place was a quiet clarity. I had spent my life chasing wealth, thinking it was the only thing that mattered. But in one night, a young waitress with nothing had shown me just how bankrupt I really was. Her small act of kindness was worth more than my entire portfolio. I pulled out my phone, my fingers moving with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. I created a group message to every employee I had fired. My thumbs shook as I typed. To my valued team, what I did yesterday was cold, cruel, and inexcusable. It was the action of a man who had completely lost his way. Your positions are restored, effective immediately. To begin making things right, all salaries will be doubled. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, please join me at the restaurant at noon today. Your Christmas bonuses will be there, and so will my personal apology. Merry Christmas. Adrian Sterling. I hit send, my heart pounding. That afternoon, Aureus wasn't a silent tomb anymore. It was filled with life, with laughter, and with the hesitant sound of forgiveness. I stood before them all and apologized, my voice thick with emotion. I told them about my mother, the stew, and Amelia. I told them they weren't just employees. They were the heart of the restaurant. Amelia was there, looking overwhelmed. I promoted her to manager, but more importantly, I thanked her for reminding me what it means to be human. We didn't open for business that day. We had a staff party. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sitting at the head of the table as the boss. I was just in the middle of it all, sharing a meal, part of the family. I learned that true wealth isn't measured by a spreadsheet or a bank account. It's measured by the warmth you share and the connections you make. It's measured not by what you own, but by what you give.